Hey, good evening. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, stepping into your life to give you some tools and techniques to help you as you go through the trauma of divorce. I hope you're doing well. I don't know where you're at in this process or if you're maybe just beginning this process or considering this process. I've been working with some people lately who are trying to make that very, very difficult decision. Get rid of that there. And I feel for them. I feel for you as you go through this. I went through my own 20 some years ago. I think it's been like 28 years now, a long time ago. But for the past 19 years, I've been doing this work to help you, support you. And I just don't want you alone because I know how alone it was all those years ago. There weren't support groups at that time. There wasn't a lot of information. There certainly wasn't the internet to be of help and to give information to people. So many people, like myself, really suffered alone. I don't want that for you. That's really been my mission the last 19 years is to make sure that you are not alone. That's why you see that Don't Go Through It Alone. And let me just say, September 10th, the next group is going to begin in person and online. So it'll be hybrid. I've had people in the country, all throughout the country. I've had people out of the country actually go through this. So connect with me for a registration form and we will get that started. So you probably saw the little ticker there that was stating the two areas that can trip you up during divorce and after divorce. So I want to talk about those tonight. And I have seen this myself in people having done this 19 years. I've witnessed people who come back to me later and found themselves in another relationship, found themselves in another marriage, and realized I wasn't healed, I wasn't ready. And yet I find myself married and going through another divorce because they have not spent their time on the healing. So the two areas are going to trip you up most likely is going to be money and sex. And I want to talk about those two areas tonight. That's what I've seen. People who, for various reasons, think that they can maintain the same lifestyle and spend the money accordingly, or they're just angry and they'll be darned if they're going to stop living their lifestyle and end up really just hurting themselves financially. And then, of course, there's sex, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's talk about money first. There's many ways that you can hurt yourself and get tripped up with money as you go through divorce. First of all, divorce itself is very expensive, and it can kill your finances probably like nothing else. So you have to be careful. And that's the reason why I have the manual, How to See Your Attorney, for the first time. And that's a free download. All you have to do is request it from me, and I will send that out because this is my mission. This is my mission to guide people through the trauma of divorce, the least amount of damage emotionally, financially, spiritually, and physically. I want to minimize the damage for you. So if you just jump into an attorney's office and you start following his direction, you're going to spend a lot more money than you have to because there is a lot of this that you can do on your own. I want you to use attorneys, which are very necessary, but I want you to use them carefully and have a plan on how to do that. Divorce is expensive. I had a gentleman in my group several years ago said, I'm at 129,000 and we're not done yet. I don't want to scare you. He was a man of means, but still, who wants to spend that on a divorce, a fighting? No, no one does. The only one who benefited were the attorneys. Divorce is expensive, and you have to have a strategy and you have to have a plan to go through this. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we learn how to use attorneys carefully. And keeping in mind that every text, every email, every phone call, you're being charged for. So how do we do that? Well, we learn what we can do on our own. We learn to be wise decision makers, and again, how to use your attorney judiciously, carefully. Another way that can trip us up financially is we can make emotional purchases. We can make emotional financial decisions. I'm going to buy that Harley just to show her. Or I'm going to buy this big house just to show him, or just to show the world that I'm going to make it and I'm going to be okay. That's dangerous. It's very easy to make emotional decisions, which can hurt us in the long run. So we want to be very careful. And that's why in our group, in the support group, that's where we start, is with the emotions, because they can override our logical brain, and they do, in fact. So emotional financial decisions can get us into a lot of trouble. We have to realize that you will be living on less money, and sometimes you don't realize that until it's too late. So you have to move carefully and with great calculation, with a network of support that's going to help you make the wisest decisions. Yes, you will have legal fees, but you don't have to have as many as you might have if you're uninformed and simply jump into an attorney's office and rely on them to guide you every step of the way. There are things that you can do on your own. So divorce is expensive. It's easy to make emotional decisions, and you're going to need to start living on less money for now until everything settles, and then you can decide how to move forward. And keep in mind and keep in trust that God is going to watch out for you. Through this spiritual crisis that you are going through called divorce, this rawness is a time to draw near to who God is, to trust Him, to lay your needs out before Him and have Him direct you. My God will meet your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus. That is unfathomable of how rich that is. So this is a time to develop that spiritual muscle of trust in who God is. The second way that we can get tripped up, sex. And that happens because we are so broken and so raw, because we've been rejected. We've been perhaps betrayed. We don't feel attractive. We don't feel desirable. And some of us will set out to prove that wrong, or to prove the spouse wrong. It only further complicates your life drastically. I know this is hard, this very vulnerable time. That's why you need support. That's why you cannot go through this alone. You need support. You need people to encourage you. You need to go into groups, healthy people, meetup groups, healthy activity. You need guidance through this time, because it's only going to complicate your life. I worked with people in their second divorce. Why? Because they weren't healed when they got married the second time. So please, please, I know this is hard. I know how raw, I know how tender you are. I remember myself just going into church and having someone touch me on the shoulder, and it felt like salve to a burn, because I was so incredibly raw. And because we're so raw, we are so vulnerable. We need to feel valued and have someone's attention. I get that. But find the right people to give it to you. Not the opposite sex, not now. Because it will feel oh so good. And because you are vulnerable right now, your judgment is off, and we're unable to think and see clearly. We can't, because we are so needy right now. That's why you need support group. That's why you can't go through this alone. That's why you may even need accountability, someone to be accountable to guard yourself, to get you through this time. Sex complicates us in seeing the red flags that we need to see. You need to see some warning signs when you begin in a new relationship. And if you are having sex, you are not able to see these red flags and these warning signs because sex can be a drug of itself, on its own, right? It can cloud our mind, and it will cloud your mind. We need to see clearly and be focused. Will he fall in love with you without sex? That's the question. That's the question. And if you don't ever give him or her the opportunity to do that, you may never know. I love this quote. I use it in my group. I think it is just so profound. And we need to be reminded of that sex is the expression of intimacy and not the means to get to it. Listen to that carefully. Sex is the expression of intimacy and not the means to get to it. You cannot use sex to get to intimacy. You have to have the intimacy, the relationship, all of that to get to healthy sex, which also is in the confines of marriage, right? God created sex. So when we think, oh, God is just these, rule maker, no. He has these guidelines for you to protect you. To protect you. So when he says this, notice what he says in 1 Corinthians. Flee from sexual immorality. That means run from it. Because God knows how powerful it can be. All other sins a person commits are outside of the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. So God has guidelines for marriage. Has guidelines for sex, and it is marriage. He does that to protect us, to keep us safe, because he's well aware of the human heart, the human mind, the human needs, and how we can be vulnerable, and it can complicate. God's well aware of this. So for us to understand that, okay, God, you have this here to protect me, not to ruin my fun, but to protect me. Again, it goes back to, can I trust what God says about money, about sex, about life? You can. I have seen those who have trusted him. The times in my life when I have trusted him were the times of great clarity and focus and moving forward, which I know is what you want to do. I hope this has been of help. Guard your heart. Where's that beautiful verse? Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Everything valuable comes out of it. I hope this has been of help. Connect with me for registration form for the group starting September 10th. Let me know if I can be of help or support to you. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, walking with you every step of the way through the trauma and after the trauma of divorce. Have a good evening.